This will be the regular board meeting scheduled for November 21st, 2024. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming and welcome our two new board members, Craig and Mary. So glad to have y'all. You know, my wife came home, she had a engagement at the prison where she's a nurse, and they said, they always give a little short statement before all the meetings. And she said, y'all don't do that? I said, no. She said, well, our president does that every time. So I said, golly. So then she read what they said last night before all the prison employees. What they said was, let your smile change the world, but don't let the world change your smile. Things are changing all the time in public education. I changed that from nurses. We must stay positive and keep putting our best foot forward. Do not let the negatives get you down because our children's future depends on it. So staying positive with our kids. But to introduce our two kids, I'm going to turn over to Miss Wooten. She got two young airport students tonight.
Thank you, and I can't get my microphone to come on. Here we go. All right. Thank you, Chairman Key. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are delighted to have two airport high school students with us. Tonight, we have Kylie Merchant and Alyssa Seacale. Kylie will be doing the invocation, and Alyssa will be doing the pledge. Kylie Merchant is a senior at Airport High School. She currently holds a GPA of 4.93 and ranks 11 out of 265. Kylie is a member of student government, National Honor Society, and Beta Club. She was a junior marshal for the graduation class of 2024. Kylie takes dual enrollment courses through Midlands Technical College and will earn her general studies certificate in May and has served on 2 mission trips to Guatemala. After graduation, she will attend the University of South Carolina, majoring in biology, and then enroll in the College of Dental Medicine at MUSC to become a dentist. Alyssa is a senior at Airport High School with a GPA of 4.783 and currently ranked third in Trick or Treat Lane, with shaped her who she is today. Her time in the Beta Club was particularly special, allowing her to meet incredible people and grow through the community service. Alyssa was honored to serve as a junior marshal in graduation last year. Athletically, she is proud to have won a state championship in wrestling, becoming the first female wrestler at Airport to achieve this milestone. She has also built lasting relationships with her coaches through wrestling and softball, which have been instrumental in her personal growth. After graduation, Alyssa plans to attend the University of South Carolina to pursue a degree in civil engineering or finance. If not USC, a school that offers a girls wrestling team where she can continue her passion for that sport. All right, girls, y'all can come on up to the podium.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for your abounding love and grace over all of our lives. I ask you to abundantly pour out your wisdom and righteousness into the hearts and minds of our board members, superintendent, faculty, and staff as they seek to lead and direct the path of our school district. I pray that you bring them unity and resolve, humility and disagreement, patience and grace to cooperate as they seek the betterment of our students and families in this community. We humbly ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on our agenda is a consent agenda, and we're looking at October 15th, 2024, the special called board meeting, and October 17th, the regular monthly meeting, and then our November 12th, 2023, special called meeting. With no objections, the consent agenda stands approved as presented. All right, next is public participation. We have 2 signed up tonight, and Ms. Calva, do we have any more that signed up? Is it still just the 2? I think it's just the 2. She said she was going to check. All right. As each person will have 5 minutes, and we just ask that no profanity be used. We also ask that you do not use staff or student names. The board will not give feedback per policy and will receive all comments as information only. So with that, our first person up tonight is Melissa Goforth. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I wanted to speak with you all tonight about the CPIF funds or CPIF report, or to address them. Typically, these funds are discussed towards the end of the school year, at the end of the fiscal year, in a workshop. In fact, just this past year, that workshop was live streamed for the first time, which we appreciated. The previous year, my husband and I were the only public in attendance. We took a lot of notes, but unless you unless you got my notes, then you didn't have a full picture of what happened. So we appreciated that live stream. So my question about the CPIF funds tonight, I believe the agenda originally didn't say update. It said something about request when I checked it this morning. I just wanted to find out, and I will tonight, if those are the same funds discussed at the beginning of the year, or are we talking about additional funds? And attachments before this meeting available to the public, as I've harped about several times over the past 2 years. And as we've often done in the past under previous leadership, it would lend to transparency and clarity for all stakeholders. So I am looking forward to more discussion about the policy tonight. Also, furthermore, in regards to workshops, are these still being live streamed? When I searched again this morning online, I could not find a workshop available for viewing since a year ago, or roughly a year ago, on November 30th, 2023. So if they are being live streamed, are they still available for viewing after the fact and available on the LexingtonTwo YouTube channel? And welcome to new members, new leadership. I've seen several discussions online on social media about leadership and about roles that the board should take. You all took a vote at the special meeting, I think it was last week, maybe the week before, when you were taking your oath of office. That meeting is not available last time I checked on YouTube as well, so I hope that that's corrected if it's possible. If not, hopefully we can move forward in the new year with the spirit of transparency and making sure that information is available for viewing. But in regard to social media, while I have taken part of those conversations as a Lex2 stakeholder and a Riverbank parent, a couple of my comments were deleted, and normally it's not a big deal at social media, but I do want to sum up the South Carolina Daily Gazette when they published an article this year stating, in this public square, social media, people can preach the gospel or campaign for office. Members of this expansive community can praise the new shopping center or exhibit their talent or complain about a new tax or policy to fund development. Though many social media providers are private actors entitled to their own editorial discretion, when the account holder on a platform is a government agency, official, or a candidate for office, the First Amendment demands that they allow posters to speak, even if that speech is disagreeable or contrary to their preferred speech. Accordingly, the government official, candidate, or government agency is prohibited from deleting comments or blocking someone from accessing the social media account at issue. Simply disliking a comment or perspective is insufficient grounds for that official, candidate, or agency to silence the poster by deleting their comment or blocking them. In short, if you or someone you know has been blocked by a government or candidate's account or had comments deleted, your First Amendment rights may have been infringed. Of course, then they go on to encourage you to document that incident and then also just make sure that those candidates or government actors are aware that your First Amendment rights have been violated so that it's not a conflict in the future. So just bringing that up, and I know that we can do better because we have done better in the past. So I look forward to a new year with all of you. And finally, I was so excited yesterday to pick up Chef C.C. Parker's Culinary Arts class's bake sale items for Thanksgiving. It's a not so well kept secret that I don't cook for Thanksgiving anymore. I go to my in-laws and I take the lemon pound cake and the fresh cranberry sauce and 2 packs of yeast rolls to my in-laws at Thanksgiving, and they appreciate it. So I appreciate it very much. It's tasty, and for the 3rd year now, we have been very satisfied. Unfortunately, the Death by Chocolate Ganache pound cake did not make the trip because it's in our tummies. But it was very good, and I heard that there are Easter bake sale treats coming, and then I love those strawberries during Valentine's Day. Thanks so much. Hope you have a great Thanksgiving break and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Goforth. Next up, we have Brian Habing.
I'm excited to see item 12A on the proposed revision to BEDA board meeting information on the agenda tonight. I can't say for sure what it's about since nothing is posted in advance of the meeting, so we can't read the first readings, but I'm really hopeful that it addresses that issue and that in the future we will see all of the first reading material in advance. And if that's the intent of 12A, I thank the board a lot.
Thank you. Next item up is honors and accomplishments of students and staff, and I turn over to Dr. Hefner.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman Key. It is wonderful that we have many to celebrate tonight, and we'll start with our first recognition is for the Bright Ideas grant winners given by Mid-Carolina Electric Cooperative to fund innovative ideas. LexingtonTwo had 3 winners this year: Kim Harden, a science teacher at Brooklyn Casey High School; Caitlin White, a theater teacher at Airport High School; and Colin Richardson, orchestra director at Airport High School. Our 2 airport teachers both had theater and music commitments tonight, so Airport Principal Matt Shillett is going to share information about their grants and what they plan to do with them. But first, we will have Ms. Harden speak about plans for her grant award. My apologies, Mr. Shillett.
I'm Kimberly Harden, and I teach AP Environmental, AP Chemistry, AP Research, and regular environmental at Brooklyn Casey High School. I applied for the Bright Ideas grant and received $1,000, and they surprised me at the school, which was really nice. I received it for dissolved gases probes. The kids are very good with digital things, and they teach me so much, and so meeting them on their terms was important to me, and so having that grant opportunity is very important. So the kids will use the dissolved oxygen probes and dissolved carbon dioxide probes to do water quality testing and to determine productivity of aquatic ecosystems. So thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Shillett.
Good evening, thank you, and happy to be here to represent 2 fabulous teachers from Airport High. Dr. Hafter mentioned Caitlin White, unable to be here tonight. It gives me the opportunity to plug while she's not here. Beauty and the Beast, our fall musical, opens tonight, and that's where she is. But please spread the word. We have shows all through the weekend. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, Saturday, 2 o'clock, Saturday, 7 o'clock. So these students have been working extremely hard, many hours, obviously, throughout the week since August, so hopefully you can come out and spread the word to the community on that. But Caitlin White is a recipient of one of these grants, and what's unique about this, besides providing opportunity and experiences for students at Airport, as I read what she has prepared, you will see that this will touch the hands of a lot of students at Airport in LexingtonTwo, not just Airport High School. But she's happy to report that with this grant, they are designing the Sven puppet for Frozen, as well as creating giant parade-style puppets. Students will be utilizing theater design skills as well as engineering skills to create these puppets. Engineering is required to create giant puppets that are functional, move easily, and this is truly a STEAM project. This grant will go specifically and especially for fabrics and tools that the students will use to build these puppets. They also will be bringing in a guest artist to go through how this is done. In addition to this enriching learning experience for the high school students, as I just mentioned, younger students in the district will get to experience the magic of these puppets with 2 spring performances. At the end of March, the elementary students that are experiencing the Sven puppet and the production of Frozen. And then the plan for this also is for these students to take this on the road and visit local elementary schools and share what they've learned and have some hands-on experiences with the puppets. Colin Richardson, who leads our orchestra program at Airport, as she said, he's playing as we speak, also in a local event, and he's excited that he's going to be able to provide some opportunities for our students that we would not without this grant. And basically, it is providing more music and new opportunities to add to his repertoire that will allow them to continue the musical excellence that he does for our students. They will provide a variety of works that challenge and inspire them while preparing for a plethora of community events. So we're really excited about it. We're really proud of those 2 teachers, and they thank you for the support.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Next, we are very excited to have the LexingtonTwo Innovation Center's current Teacher of the Year, Chet Henderson, who's going to talk about some of the things happening in the barbering program, including some of their student community outreach. Mr. Henderson.
All right. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm here to speak on the behalf of the LexingtonTwo Innovation Center Barbering Program. My name is Chet Henderson. I'm the barber instructor there. We've been growing very well. Been going for about 3.5 years for a state board certified. The first year of the growth of the program, I only had three seniors and 1 junior. They only was able to go half of the year because of the time before they graduated. And then in the second year, I had 8 seniors that graduated. And then my third year, I had 10. And this year, I have 15 and 17 juniors. So I have 32 students. I can tell the program is growing just by on behalf of the numbers of increase. This past May, I had 36 sign up for my class to start this school year, and we can only take 20. 20 is the limit by state to take, and so that's good. That let me know that I had to cut down 16 students from that 20, and the reason how I did it was off the GPA and attendance and et cetera. So to narrow it down to the top 20. For the community outreach, it's going real good. We've been doing this for 3 years. Sponsored by the St. Vincent de Paul Society. We've been doing it at St. Peter's Catholic Church off Assembly Street. This is our 3rd year doing it. Each time, I probably get about 17 to about 25 students that show up on a Saturday morning. We start from about 9 a.m. and we run to about 12:30 to 1. They feed the unhoused there, and while they're eating, we be outside cutting their hair. We normally cut. We've been averaging between 45 to 55 heads each time we go. It's right there. We be outside. It's a great opportunity for my students to conversate with people that they normally probably wouldn't conversate with. It gives them also the motivation that they know that, and it's an experience that they think they can, really can cut hair. We also big on sanitation while we out there as well, so it's a good way of community. And now it's got to the point where most of them know the students, or they recognize them from last time. So that's a good. We also, for the community outreach, matter of fact, last night we was here for the Hispanic Heritage event. I had also 17 students show up, and I got the numbers this morning that we cut like 21 heads. just over here. So that was good. So we're making progress. And also last year we started with the schools for us more in the community. I think the community it brings the circle together for them so they can see from the school aspects and then for the community. I have to say this too. Through my program, I think I'll have my parents, families and parents, they are really taking click to the actual program too. I have their support to make sure they get there on Saturdays mornings. Every first Saturday of the month, we open to the public and for them to get extra hours. So that's been going good. Also last year, we came in contact with 2 elementary schools with the SRO. They will bring students to every Friday to get haircuts. That was great to see the smiles on the elementary students, you know, that really needed a haircut or just that touch of saying that somebody do care. They came also middle school. We had Busby. They used to bring students on Fridays as well. And then also the high school used to bring the SPED students over too. So those are the things that I think that come together to make a full circle for the district, for the program to grow as well. And I just want to talk about the program, you know, so it's anybody any questions or anything?
Well, I don't know if you've noticed this, but Mr. All is looking especially dapper tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's right.
He was sitting in the chair last night, and I have to say, those people were lined up, and those kids were not fazed. They were doing their job, the girls and the guys. That was just really, you know, we hear about it, but to see it in action, they were really doing a good job. So keep on doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Well, thank y'all. Oh, yeah.
I appreciate it too, but I didn't have a lot for them to work with.
That's it. All we need is a little bit. That's it.
Could I just add, thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for growing that program.
Oh, yeah, appreciate
That's
it.
awesome.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I thank y'all for the opportunity. That's it.
Thank you.
And Mr. Henderson will not brag on himself, but what he does with these young men and women on a character development basis, teaching them how to have conversations with strangers and ask them about their lives so that they build those relationships, that when they are working on the head, that they're able to talk with them. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We are going to continue the spotlight on the Innovation Center as we recognize welding instructor extraordinaire, Mr. Laird Thompson, who was recently surprised in his classroom with news that he had been named the WLTX Teacher of the Week. We're going to hear a bit about the award and the nomination. And joining us at the podium is Mrs. Joni Coleman, Director of the Innovation Center, and Mr. Thompson himself. Welcome.
Thank you. Dr. Hafter, Mr. Chairs, members of the board, it's my privilege tonight to introduce to you Mr. Laird Thompson. Mr. Thompson has been a welding instructor in LexingtonTwo since 2003. Prior to becoming a teacher, Mr. Thompson was well known in the steel industry. In 1985, after working in the industry for several years, he was given his first supervisory role. He has been a proven leader ever since. As an educator, Mr. Thompson leads by example. He sets high standards for his students. He takes pride in seeing his students succeed. He always goes above and beyond to ensure his students are not only learning welding skills, but life skills. His philosophy as a teacher is that it's the instructor's goal to help the students reach theirs. His goal isn't just to teach them how to be a successful welder, but they can achieve anything they want if they persevere and become lifelong learners. Mr. Thompson is also not one who likes to be in the spotlight. However, he was recently named the WLTX Teacher of the Week. He was nominated by a former student and was also recognized last night at the Casey City Council meetings. Mr. Thompson.
If I could start quickly by telling one story for Mr. Chet. His students do remarkable things. Our entire school does. I was talking to one of his students, and they had recently cut some hair for the needy, and we were just talking, and he said, "It's just really cool when you can give back to your community." That's a teenage thinking that way. It's remarkable what that program does. And I'm like you, they've worked on my hair. It's a challenge. They have so many headfuls of hair. Let's see what you can do when we're follically challenged, right? That's my goal. Let's get them out of their comfort zone. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity or for the invitation to come tonight to see you. It is quite humbling, to be honest, and I am not one for the spotlight. I would like to talk a little bit, just briefly, about what our students are doing in the welding program. Currently, we have 17 seniors. They all have just recently finished taking AWS, American Welding Society, D1.1 welder qualifications. That's a national credential. We're waiting on the third-party results from those. And so as they move forward, my fitting and fastening student has been building some frames for some customers. And so they are starting to TIG weld those. That's a high-order process that can be quite lucrative if they get good at it. So those are a little bit about the senior activities. We have 2 other levels right now. We're dealing with a 20-person level 1 class who are getting ready to finish for the semester, and a level 2 class in the afternoon. So we teach 4 units of study along with a capstone class that we were able to build a few years ago of fitting and fastening for seniors of the program, or graduates or completers of the program who are now seniors, who actually finished the program as juniors. And it's where steel and welding and all come together, when you can start to put it together and make it fit and be correct dimensionally. So that's a little bit where we are. I'll conclude quickly. It is very humbling, and I'm very honored to be here. What's even more humbling to me is that when one of your former students says enough or thinks enough to push your name forward, and it was just very remarkable to me. So thank you for your time, and please, when you have time, come listen to the noise and the sparks in the welding department. Good night.
So, Mr. Thompson, I want to comment on you as well, because you too do a great job. You were so close with character development with your young folks, and it really shows when you're in the classroom and they're able to explain to us what it is that they're working on and why they're doing what they're doing. But also, I will share that a year ago we were in an advisory group, and Mr. Thompson was one of the folks. Do you remember this? That I asked to join in.
Oh, yes.
And it was so impressive because we were talking about changing the mindset of programs like welding and the Innovation Center, and trying to get parents to understand how lucrative jobs of that nature can be and how important it is to have that as an option for career development. And Mr. Thompson, so eloquently, and I know I won't quote you quite right, but you said, you know, I want my students to come to me to earn a trade and to earn a skill, but what I tell them is more important is that I want them to have the reading and writing and mathematics skills from their regular high school, so that they can one day not just be the worker, but that they can be the supervisor. And so that is just that's important, and I'm so grateful for that. So thank you for what you do.
I'm sorry. To carry on with that conversation, at our school, we're considered a working school. It's not like high schools that work program. We want to instill in our students all of the attributes, you would call them soft skills, that any and all employers want, but help to create leadership. And so that's even part of our grading metrics. It's 20% of our total grade for our students, and they fill out those forms daily about whether they're on task, whether they are on time, whether they're responsible for their work, and those types of things. And that's the very thing that we're talking about. We are one component, but when you start to think about the homeschools and all of the academics and how they tie together, we create lifelong learners and leaders, and that's what you're after.
Don't leave yet. Tuesday night, Laird, I was at a men's group, and there was a 20-year-old sitting next to me, and I was like, "Hey, where'd you go? Did you happen to go to Lexington too?" You know, you have to do that if you're a board member. And he's like, "Yeah, I actually was a graduate, a completer of the Innovation Center." And I said, "That's awesome. What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm making pretty good money at Zeus down in Orangeburg now, and I'm getting paid to go to college, and I'm doing all these things." And I said, "Oh, really? What was it?" And he said, "Oh, Mr. Thompson, he set me up for success, and I'll owe him forever." So you had two prior students this week and the last week to give you credit. So to you and Chet, who's also cut my hair and raises awesome men over there in that program, really appreciate y'all both.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'd like to recognize District Gifted and Talented Coach Larissa Cuffey from Wood Elementary, who received the LaTanya Dilligard McDuffie Heritage Champion Award from Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, excuse me for getting tongue-tied. Wood Principal Angela Brown is going to tell us a little bit about the award, and Ms. Cuffey's going to talk about her activities with the students, so welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Hafner, members of the board. It's my honor to introduce Ms. Larissa Cuffey, recipient of the LaTanya Dilligard McDuffie Heritage Champion Award. Through her unwavering commitment to celebrating and preserving African American heritage, her work alongside of a great team has elevated our school's annual Black History celebration to wonderful heights. Ms. Cuffey is deeply devoted to ensuring the legacy of African American contributions, goodness gracious, I don't know what's wrong with me tonight, and remains alive and vibrant with all that she does with the work with our adults and our students. Her passion for education and cultural awareness shines through all that she does, inspiring our students, our staff, and the broader community. Ms. Cuffey's dedication and tireless efforts truly make her a beacon of hope and inspiration, and we are very proud to have her as part of the Wood Elementary staff, and we call it the Neighborwood, and to recognize her as a heritage champion. Ms. Cuffey?
Good evening. This award gave me an opportunity to shine a light on some of the things that's being done at Wood Elementary. The idea was for the kids to have more of an expo than an assembly. And the goal was just for them to learn something new and be able to take that home and discuss it with their family. So with the expo idea, we have artists, we have authors come in. The kids also have an opportunity to have 30 different showcases that they can attend, arts and crafts and bingo, local businesses, Tuskegee Airmen, ballerinas, drummers, all the things. They also get a bag as they're going through the showcases, and they get lots of surcease and things, and they're always so excited when they come out. Along with the 30 showcases, they also can attend 4 or 5 other activities like the big artists, like Corey Austin or Mike Gibson with his topiaries. And along with that, if that's not enough, we also have bakeries come in with desserts. And last year, we distributed over 1,500 desserts in 2 hours. We have food trucks and only the community and the adults get to go to the food trucks, but the kids do get to experience the desserts. And if you have not attended our expo in recent years, you are welcome to join us on February 21st, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 2 more. Next, we're going to hear about a $10,000 grant that Pine Ridge Middle School teacher Tabitha Laudenslager received for the Visual Arts Program, a grant that she's received for 8 years running. Wow. Principal Karen Holloman will introduce her, and then Ms. Laudenslager will tell us a bit about how those funds enrich the visual arts experiences for Pine Ridge Middle students.
Thank you. This is Miss Tabitha Laudenslager. She is her second year at Pine Ridge Middle School as our visual arts teacher. We have a phenomenal fine arts program at Pine Ridge. She has had a goal all these years of teaching to reach $100,000 grant amount, and she's going to tell you a little bit about where she is in that journey. But since she's been at Pine Ridge, she has secured $22,500 of grant money for the Fine Arts program. They have done some phenomenal stuff. I'm going to let her tell you all about what she's got planned with that grant money, but we're super excited to have it.
Thank you. So, yes, with this grant award for the Arts Enhancement Program, I have reached my goal of $100,000 in grant funding. Set out to do that and acquire grant funding because I have a firm belief that arts are very important to our students in their ability to become more culturally aware and better prepared for our global society. So the grants that we have procured are funding things like artist in residencies, field trips, non-traditional art materials. This year, we will be having a field trip to the Columbia Museum of Art as well as the State House and State House grounds, so we can learn a little bit about South Carolina history as well. And there should be an impressionist exhibit, at the Columbia Museum of Art during that time. We also have a visiting artist to come and introduce our students to blacksmithing and its history in the state of South Carolina. Awesome. And some non-traditional arts projects that my grant is funding this year are going to be soap sculptures, some fabric arts with fabric collages, arpilleras, which is a Chilean folk art, and then also lino cut prints, as well as some metal embossing. So I'm really excited about introducing them to those new mediums and letting them experience that.
Very good, thank you. And finally, I would like to give a shout out to the 50-plus students across the district whose work was selected for display at this year's South Carolina State Fair. Pine Ridge Middle School Principal Karen Holloman and Saluda River Academy for the Arts Principal Brandon Brantley are here to introduce two of their students and talk about the honors they received. Welcome.
My student's not here. I thought she was coming, but I do want to speak her name because she did receive the honorable mention. Diana Velasquez Moscoso, definitely a product of Miss Laudenslager, but we're super excited about her.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Graham wants to come. This is Graham Sturgis. He won honorable mention at the state fair. And I want to read a little blurb that Hannah Werman, our art teacher, she's not here. She had a prior commitment, but I want to read what she had to say about Graham's work. Graham Sturgis won honorable mention at the SC State Fair this year for his mixed media piece that was created the previous year when he was in kindergarten. The series was entitled Snowy Owls and was inspired by a read aloud, Owl Moon, as well as a snowy art painting by John James. Let's see, lost my place, guys. Students studied the elements of art, texture, and line and used various mediums when creating their pieces, including paint, oil, pastels, and paper. So again, congratulations, Graham.
Okay, we're going to move on into our administrative division reports. First up be our superintendent's report. I turn it back over to Dr. Hefner.
Thank you, Chairman Key. I know we thought we were done with celebrating all the great things, but I wanted to share some great news with you about the LexingtonTwo Adult Education Program. I know that she does not want recognition, but we're going to do it anyway. They recently received 5 top awards from the South Carolina Department of Education Office of Adult Ed at its annual Celebrating Our Success event. The program, which operates in conjunction with LexingtonTwo, was awarded the following: the Young Adult Population Award, and that's presented to the top 15 programs in the state that serve 17 to 21-year-olds. The Enrollment Growth Award, that's presented to adult ed programs that exceeded the number of students served over the previous program year. The High School Equivalency Diploma, the GED Completer Award, That includes 2 categories: highest percentages of GEDs and the highest number of GEDs. We also, the program, received the Adult Basic Education Performance Award, presented to the top 5 programs in the state with the highest aggregate average. And lastly, the Adult Basic Education and English as a Second Language Overall Performance Award, and that's presented to the programs with the overall highest aggregate average. So I know she doesn't want the recognition, but I'd like to take just a minute to recognize our director, Mrs. Christy Henderson, for an outstanding job in leadership and an amazing staff. Ms. Henderson, if you would. Thank you for indulging me with that. Some of you may have come out last night for our Hispanic Heritage Month celebration that was mentioned earlier, and you might recall this had to be rescheduled due to Helene. We had to reschedule a number of things, but this event was held here at the Performing Arts Center and far exceeded expectations. There was storytelling, arts and crafts, games, dance, a mariachi band, free barbering, as mentioned, for children and adults. There were food trucks, student performances from Saluda River Academy for the Arts, Riverbank Elementary's immersion program students, Airport High School, and the BC High School Latino team. It was just a really great event, and I believe Mrs. Denise Quickle is here. I'd like to recognize her team of dedicated staff who assisted in pulling all of that together. If we could, Ms. Quickle, are you back there somewhere? And as a point of information to Regulation 43-170, I wanted to follow up on the guidelines established by the proviso. On our district webpage, under the Parents tab, I wanted to be sure that you are aware this is where you will find the page titled Searchable List of Books and Materials / Instructional Materials Complaint Form. This page contains the link to the materials in our library, a link to the regulation itself, a link to the complaint form, and several related links to the State Department and the State Board of Education in regards to the proviso. We feel we've done our due diligence and good conscience to meet the definition of the proviso using the different metrics. As you may be aware, the State Board is now in the process of reviewing material, and should a complaint reach that level. So if a parent has a concern with any materials, the first step in our policy that was approved earlier this fall is to reach out to the school or principal and progress from there if needed. So just wanted to give that little update. Also, we are working to adopt our policy for Proviso 1.103, anti-bullying school safety, as it pertains to cell phone usage in our schools, and that's on tonight's agenda for a second reading. Parents, as you've heard me say several times, this implementation begins in January, and students will not be allowed to have their phones out during the school day. You will begin to receive messages from us in that regard when we return from Thanksgiving break and throughout the month of December. So please help us by taking some time to talk with your child over the break about how to manage their attention without the phone as a distraction. You'll hear a lot about Free to Focus campaign. We will also discuss some safeguards should you need to get in touch with your child quickly. There are other options. So be on the lookout for more in December, please. So, Mr. Chair, that concludes my report.
All right, moving along, next division report will be finance. Turn over to Ms. Strickland.
Good evening to everyone.
You good?
Stop pressing the button. Okay, tonight I have the financial reports for the month ending October 31st, 2024. Our budget for our local source revenue is $49,047,572. As of October 31st, we have received $3,003,024. That's 6% of our budget. Our total state source revenue budget is $61,349,748. As of October 31st, we have received $15,244,071. That's 25% of our budget. And our total revenue budget is $124,128,542. Total, as of October 31st, we have received $23,615,000. $545. That's 19% of our revenue budget. Our total expense budget for the general fund, $124,128,542. As of October 31st, we have expended $30,590,747, which is 25% of our general fund expenditure budget. The next report I have is the pupil activity. Our balance for all of the schools total has increased $36,864 since September 30th of 2024. And you'll see each school listed with the explanation. That completes my financial report.
Any questions for Ms. Strickland?
Mr. Chair. First question, in revenue, other financing sources, I'm tracking that the input was the DEC cell, but in the balance, we have a negative balance.
That's
Explain that to
because
me.
there's no budget there. We don't budget for the sale of anything.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure.
That makes sense. In the expenses in the 400, the 700 account, sub-account under 400.
Yes.
We talked earlier, 410K of that was transferred to Fine Arts Center. Can you explain that some to anybody who's?
For the startups of the Fine Arts Center, that was our startup money to get the PAC going.
Gotcha. On fully operational side.
Yes.
So, okay, perfecto. Next up is on the expenses, 300-100, the bilingual educator.
Yes.
I was just wanting to know how long we've been using it, where we use it, and if the efficacy is proven well, are we considering using this concept in any other schools?
I will have to get that information for you.
Gotcha. Do you know what school we're using it at?
I do not.
In multiple locations.
But it's one person, or is it,
I'm going to look for a nod from Mrs. Quickle.
It's a bilingual parent educator that serves
In your program.
in my parenting program.
gotcha.
And
For the littles?
we grant funded, but I requested that it be added into general fund.
Is one FTE enough?
No, it's not much, but it was a start for something. I currently have 3 full-time parent educators. 2 of them are bilingual parent educators, so 2/3 of the group that we serve are our Latino community. As you know, that's a growing community for us, and it's a large need. And so the district I was grateful that the district helped us out with that.
Are they full-time or part-time?
They are full-time. They work 190 days, and they work 37.5 hours a week. But they are paid on different hourly, like they're paid differently.
Right. Thank you. And congratulations on 30 years today. While you're standing. Keep doing it. So that is something that we may want to consider duplicating in the future. Next question on the reserve balance. The current budget, obviously, every year we zero out our budget, right? So we've got 124 million, give or take, coming in and going out. The revenue is inclusive of the 3.4 that we've reassigned from the fund balance.
Right.
After a third of the year, I know that we don't do an updated or revised budget, but based on this, do we feel that we're going to need to assign all 3.4 million from the fund balance to the general fund to operate through the end of the year?
It's early to tell that right now. Usually I'll reassess that in January,
Okay.
so I'll look.
Will you do a revised budget in January, or will you just kind of reassess?
Well, the use of that fund balance, like we would not use that until year end. So
Right.
if our expenses exceed our revenue, then that's when that use of fund balance would kick in.
Tracking. So, but come mid-year, we should see kind of where our burn rate is, and we should have a better idea if we're going to need to tap into that 3.8 million, or if we might be able to leave some of it back.
Right.
Perfect. Next question, debt service. 12/31/2025, I was talking about the 6/30 balance versus the not 12/31 balance. Can you explain that some?
So you're talking about the report?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Did we not get there yet?
no, not yet.
Oh,
That's the
sorry.
next
We just
item.
did the pupil, huh?
Yes.
Well, I did pupil activity. We're good to go. So that's all I have for now, Chair.
Any other
Thank
questions, Frank?
Mr.
Ms. Rucker?
Chairman, I would just like to ask if we ever get to a point where we're going to possibly need to use the fund balance, that you please make the board aware immediately, because we were kind of under the impression that it would not likely be needed. So I just wanted to kind of ask that, if at any time we think we're going to need to use that, to let us know, please.
Okay, well, again, I won't know 100% sure until the end of the year, but we,
As
as
we're
we
tracking,
go, yes.
as we reassess in January. Okay, thank you.
Any others? Without objection, the monthly financial report are accepted as presented. Anything else, Ms.?
Oh, I have one more thing on the agenda. The second thing I have is the capital projects funding update. I have Mr. Mike Gallagher with Compass Municipality Advisors to come up and talk about the capital projects funding.
Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Dr. Hafner, it's a pleasure to be here with you. A month and a half ago or so, we sat down and met with Ms. Strickland and Mr. Warren and Dr. Hafner just to review the debt profile, and thought after the election, new board members coming in would be a very good, appropriate time to look at the debt profile of the district, understand what visions that y'all have, what targets you want to have, and understand. But the biggest thing is, what are we obligated to? So we'll start off. There's a little handout that was in your packets, and the first page is the debt capsule report. That lays out each of the bond issues that the school district has. There's a 2015 IPRB REF, and that stands for Installment Purchase Revenue Bond Refunding. That was done back in 2015. It's got a original balance of $17,615,000. We've paid it down to $13,175,000. The borrowing rate on it was just over 3%. The callable maturities, so all the bonds that are from June of 2025 forward, are callable. So anytime next year, we could be coming back to you and say, hey, you've got an opportunity to refinance this bond issue. And so those are at 3.44%. Probably doesn't work great today, but as we get into the year next year, if rates come down, I'd come back to y'all and say, hey, look, you have an opportunity to save money. We can, much like you refinance your house, if you borrowed high and you can save some money, we'll bring that back to you. The next three issues, the 2015 C that originated at $25 million is down to $5.4 million. The 2016 C was $100 million. 2017 C was $100 million. That was part of your referendum from 2014. Those bonds are callable in March of 25, and it's got a 2.32 rate on it of the callable maturities, so there's a good chance those probably aren't going to be called, but we'll monitor it and bring it back to you. And then the next year, you would have an opportunity that you might be able to refinance the 2016s or 2017s. And the last two issues that are outstanding, there's the 2024A and a 24B. Those were bonds that were issued to make your installment purchase revenue bond payments. The A series made the interest payment in June. The B series will be making your December 1st payment. In addition, that issue gives funding for your capital projects. And so we size those out at the end of the year, just before in September, before they set the levy, and it's done at the target levy. Okay, and so if we move on to the next page, you'll see a graph, and this graph shows a representation of what all your payments look like for the existing bonds that are out there, which are green and red and blue, but then you'll notice there's an orange category, and that's an amount of money that you get each year that you can borrow each year. I believe y'all call it your CPIF money. Some folks call it 8% money. Some call it just their annual maintenance and technology. We put it on here, labeled it annual technology and maintenance. That's CPIF. It's projected out each year. One of the things is you want to wait until you see what the balance is at the county treasurer's office as of June 30 before you get into sizing that out. But we've tried to be conservative because we want to give you a number that you could, at a minimum, plan for your future needs. All right. The next page is the debt service report. And this is just the aggregate principal and interest payments. The one I'd want to bring attention to would be 24B, and that was the one that was to make your IPRB payment, and that did provide $11.3 million that was available for your CPIF. Okay. And then we've got $10.5 million plugged in as a placeholder. That number may be higher, may be lower. If you have other needs that you need to fund over a little bit longer period of time, we've got the flexibility that we could do that as well. So if there are other needs that would exceed that, we would want to look at. The next page is your millage cash flow report. And the history on this goes back to 2012. And you'll notice those years between 12 and 2023 have asterisks beside them. Each year when we get a copy of your audit from Ms. Strickland, we go back in and figure out what was the actual collected value of a mill. And so back in 2012, we were at $212,000. 2023, last year your audit's been finished, we were just a hair under $300,000, $298,023. So we've seen very good growth over the years. You'll notice that we do not have a very large growth rate going forward, 1% to 2%. So we tried to make that as conservative as possible, because the last thing we want to do is plan on having more money and then those dollars don't show up, or we have to do something very unpopular, which would be raise taxes, which we know that you do not want to do. Then you'll see the fee in lieu in column D. Those numbers have trended upward, but we've left them level at $1.1 million. And then your state sources, that's the funds that come in from the homestead reimbursement for the folks that are over 65 years of age. You'll notice in column F, there's where we drew down on our fund balance. So that's where there was money that was at the county. So the tax collections came in a little bit higher than what we had projected and anticipated. So there were extra funds there that could be taken down. And we run at a 79.5 mil target, and that was the number that we settled in on after your 2014 referendum. I believe the number before the referendum was about 84, 85 mils. And through those couple refundings and things that were done at that time, we settled in on a 79.5 mil target. And then you'll see in the column J, there's remaining millage. So that's additional dollars that may be available above the target. And those numbers will get fine-tuned each year as you get into figuring out what that debt service fund balance is, what the collections have been. The next page in the report is the constitutional debt limit. And so the board is allowed to go out and borrow or issue debt up to 8% of the total assessed value of the school district. Total assessed value is projected at $618,608, which equates to a debt limit of just over $30 million. And you'll see that the capacity available, you have $16, $17 million going up to $20 million over time. And that's with the annual bonding, so that's taking care of your IPRB payments and those monies that are in there for annual technology and maintenance. But if you have a larger project that may come up, we will need to look at how we deal with that. The final page, which I think is good to look at, this is sort of how the county goes about calculating your levy. They start off with your beginning fund balance. So June 30 of 24, we're projecting a fund balance. The fund balance was $8,743,000. We took the value of a mill of 307 by the 79.5 mills would generate 24.4 million. You've got your state sources rounded out at 2 million, and then fee in lieu of 1.1 for total revenue and sources.
Talking fund balance ratios or percentage, what you need as a minimum, do you typically use the 6/30 date or do you use the 12/31 date?
We look at both dates.
What is the going percentage for the?
It depends on each district. Each district has a varying. We work through it with the county auditor's office, and they'll say, well, this is a reasonable amount. But usually we do like to make sure you got enough to cover that lap payment that you have in there.
So in your expertise, you feel pretty good about both of those numbers for reserve fund balances?
Yeah, I feel very comfortable with these numbers.
Perfect. Will you go to the slide prior to this or the page prior? Nothing here. Keep going. Here, when we start getting into 2027, maybe 28, somewhere right around there, where the millage starts to drop, Who is going to, between our district, between the CFO, superintendent, you as who we're using, who's going to initiate that discussion to come up to the board to actually say, hey, guys, we can go ahead and start pulling this millage down? Do we have that planned out? Is there a mechanism in place? Because I could easily see that being a thing where we do a budget. So we're supposed to do our tech CPIF in April. But if we don't have that discussion and we're doing the regular budget at the same time, we could always end up being a full year behind on reducing that operating, that capital millage. So question is, what's the mechanism in place to bring that discussion in time each year?
I think you have an opportunity to look at it each and every year. That's 2 years from now. So when we get the audit, we go ahead and update this sheet, and I'll send it to Ms. Strickland, and then we'll sit down and review it.
And that timing is typically when?
That's usually,
That's
the
right
audit's
around now.
finished in December, so usually January, February.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. We go back up one more slide. No, not the sideways slide. All right, this slide, the yellow, are we not, this doesn't show any of that 8% after, or am I not tracking it? The 8% revenue side of it?
It's in the peach or orange color.
Does it stay that way because, does it not escalate for a particular reason? If we're hitting 79 mils and the valuation of the mill goes up, should the peach not get larger each time?
We plug $10.5 million in as a placeholder amount, knowing that we look at it every year.
To account for that reduced millage in the future?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. That's where I couldn't figure out why one should be going up and it was flat.
Would you like to, I know like Matt would love to say, if we can tell Matt he gets $10 million a year for his projects and your technology person or whatever the split happens to be between them, those folks like to know a recurring amount. And so we just left it at a static number.
Got it.
We can adjust it.
No, that completely good here. I just wanted to make sure I understood it.
Yeah, happy.
Any other questions? All right, moving along.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Before we, good with him, but before we move out of budget world, I do have a few more questions.
Okay.
Can we get an update on PAC expenditures in January? I think that our monthly updates fell off on that back in June 30th.
You mean the call?
Yeah.
Where you are with the payments?
Right. At June 30th, we still had right at $1 million remaining funds. We had $75K remaining in contingency. And just, I don't think, I looked through the notes and I couldn't find any update since then. On the same note, ESSER funds, I know that September we were supposed to have them all encumbered and used, right? Encumbered. The last time we got a report was, I think, September meeting. And at that time, we still had almost $1 million unencumbered. Did we ever get that encumbered, and do we have a plan for that?
As of September 30th, they were all encumbered. We have until December to make the payments and to ask for reimbursement. And then we have filed for late liquidation, which gives us until February. I think we still hadn't got the final deadline, but February to get those funds claimed. But we have a plan for it all, and it has all been encumbered.
Perfect. That's good to know. Can we consider getting this on the January either workshop or meeting, just since it is closing out a huge financial side, that and the CPI, the PAC expenditures, ESSER funds, and I would, based off of that conversation, and as we start really moving in the 8% or CPIF, whatever we want to call it, I think we need to have a discussion around that without a doubt, so that we can, especially as a new board, this is something we need to get on the agenda as soon as possible. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Next report come from Human Resources, Dr. Cooper.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hafner. Very briefly, I hope you've had the opportunity to review our vacancy report tonight. It's all in the area of special education. Just so that you know, we are in the process of getting ready for our spring blitz for hiring for the 25-26 school year. We'll be posting all of the positions that we have that go up for post for various reasons the day that we get out before we go on winter break. So we're in conjunction with the budget process. If there are no questions, that's all that I have.
Any questions?
I have one question and one comment. First off, fantastic on the hiring. I think everybody thought we'd be in a way different position than we are right now. So kudos to you and the team and the culture. Question, I reached out earlier and we were talking about the full-time substitutes. And we made an adjustment, I think this year, where we went up from one per school to more than one per school. Is that a correct? I don't remember ever seeing an update on that until now, but I just want to make sure. Last year was one and this year is more than one, right?
I think it's been that way for the last 2-3 years.
At least.
It was more than one? Gotcha.
It's been 27 total for quite some time.
Okay, great, even better. So the question still stands a bit. Are we evaluating the cost-benefit analysis on that? And with that, presumably it saves us money and probably makes us a bit more effective. Is 3, if that is true, is 3 the number, or the number 27, is that the number we should stick with? Or should we consider changing that? And maybe that's something that could be brought to us to look at and see in the future.
Well, it's based on recommendations from the staffing agency, the principals, and in effect for our public, our high schools have 3 full-time substitutes. Newbridge has 1, and every other school has 2. And based on principal input and the fill rates, I think 27 is a solid number, and it has been for, I'll get you that number. I'll get you the years, but as long as I can remember, actually, I don't recall a year where we had just 1.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cooper. We're going to move on into instruction, and I'll turn over to Dr. McDonald.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we are, it seems kind of odd that it's November and we're already talking about next year. We're already knee-deep to next year, in fact. But tonight, we're asking to consider calendar adoption for both the 25-26 and the 26-27 school year. So we'll go through just a few things with you this evening to make sure you have all the information. I'll let you put the presentation up. We'll just start. Just so you all are aware, how we arrived at this calendar, we put together our annual calendar committee, which of course consisted of folks here in this building, some of our school principals, as well as our teacher of the year, and 3 community members. We drafted out based on our current expectations and plans for a calendar, as well as keeping in compliance with the law related to school calendars. That committee looked at some drafts, made some recommendations, which were then sent out to our staff for consideration. And of course, just so you all are aware, Statute 59-1-425 requires that a school district calendar must be a minimum of 180 school days. At least 3 of those days you must also schedule 3 additional days for makeup day purposes. There have to be 10 scheduled days used for collegial professional development. So those are the days that we work with our teachers on different tasks. And there can be no more than 3 half-days allowed during a year. A few years ago, a modified calendar was allowed in South Carolina by school districts to use to allow flexibility instead of sticking with a rigid, it must be between the 3rd Monday in August and whenever you get that 180 days in. So our district has, for the last few years, utilized that modified calendar approach to be able to meet the compliance of the law. Now, of course, here as a district, we also have some things that we want to see happen in our calendar, and that includes having 2 semesters that are roughly equal in length, around 90 days, having 2 years approved. Each year after this, we will just come back and add another year on so that it keeps us ahead of the curve. That is pretty commensurate with most every district around us. Again, this allows us a lot of different opportunities. So when we presented these calendars to our committee, of course, as I said, they provided us feedback. We sent those calendars out, draft A and B for 25-26 and 26-27 for feedback from our staff across the district. And of course, we wanted to try to make sure that our calendars look like districts similar to us, near us, places where folks live. There was lots of great feedback that included things such as, helping us make sure that our calendar looks like other districts, but also look at some year-round options. There were comments both in support and against the year-round options that came back. Of course, lots of folks commented that they want to be finished by Memorial Day. So in order to do that, you have to shift things up a little bit. And also, a resounding sentiment was, please don't start school on a Monday. No one wants a 5-day week that first week because we want to have time to get everybody settled in and get them organized. There were, however, some folks who said, I need a 5-day week because it helps me get balanced. Altogether, we had 208 responses to the survey that was sent out to the staff. And you can kind of see here on the slide, there's a breakdown for you. That orangey color are teachers, so they were the majority of our responses, and certainly took some time to provide excellent feedback. You have the drafts that appear on the next slide. Of course, you won't be able to see those there, but you have the larger copies for consideration. Again, more than 200 people responded. One of my favorite comments, and something that I'm adjusting to as a newbie to the district, is having that week off at Thanksgiving. That seems to be a giant hit, by the way, that everyone loves, and I am looking forward to myself next week. But we wanted to make sure we incorporated that. When you look at the two calendar drafts, the results were pretty consistent. That I don't know why it's clicking itself. There we are. Our recommendation for you for the 25-26 school year is to approve calendar A, the option A. There were 208 responses. 171 folks felt like A was the best option for us, and 37 folks felt like B was the best option on the 25-26 calendar. Likewise, when you get over to 26-27, we essentially took basically the same premise and the same parameters in building a calendar and worked in that school year. We consulted with some districts around us about what they were thinking. Of course, if you act tonight, we likely will be one of the first districts in our area, if not the first, to approve a 26-27 calendar. So we're setting the stage this year if you all approve this evening. And so this gives us an opportunity to get out in front of our year and start planning that out. Most districts that we consulted with, their calendars are going to look very similar to what we were proposing tonight. And it also, in that calendar for 26-27, gives us the opportunity to still conclude school prior to Memorial Day. It gives us that ability to keep that summer intact, and also gives us a little bit later spring break. One of the options, and if you looked at option B in that set, it actually was not very popular with folks about spring break because it put it prior to the Easter holiday instead of after. So our recommendation tonight for 26-27 is that you approve calendar option A as presented. Just so you're aware, 167 folks gave us an opinion that they felt like A was the best option. 41 felt like B was the best option. So in summary, our recommendation from the administration tonight is to consider approving 25-26 option A, and for 26-27 approving calendar option A. So I'll take any questions that you might have.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendation and approve for the 25-26 school year calendar A, and for the 26-27 school year calendar A.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Rucker. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Ms. Custer?
First of all, thank you so much for the thorough report. I mean, this is really good to see how the thought that went into it, which we all know that you include all these people. But we have some day schools that our kids feed in through them, and they are going to do backflips to have the schedule already. They're going to be so excited just because they follow our schedule and want to start getting theirs ready. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Ms. Rucker?
Thank you. Thank you for the details again around the calendar. When we have makeup days, I believe some of the other board members in the past have mentioned that we would like to see those as in-person days instead of e-learning days. So if that could just be considered as we're doing the makeup days where needed.
Certainly.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, as a fellow newbie, let me just ask this question. It just appeared on your pie chart that the input from parents was very limited. I mean, do you think that we need to get more input from parents, from the public?
I believe historically that the staff has been consulted largely in that. That's kind of what we followed suit in. That is certainly something that in future years we could consider.
Okay.
We did, and again, we did invite this year to be a part of that calendar committee, some parent representatives, Ms. Goforth and a couple others, represented very well. They asked lots of great questions, and we appreciated that. I think it always helps to have that parent perspective, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
I'm glad to hear that you appreciate questions, because I have plenty. What's the difference between an early release day and a half day?
Sure. So it's really the same thing. To a parent, it's going to be the same thing. To us in this, in our roles, it's a little different. A half day, of course, that's what it is. It's a half day where students are dismissed early. The other half, teachers work. On an early release day, students are dismissed early. Teachers and staff are in professional learning. So those early release days is when we release for professional development purposes. Really no different other than what we use the afternoon balance for with the adults in the schools.
Gotcha. On the elementary side with the half days, the exam ones, if they're not taking exams, then what kind of stipulates that or forces that? Or is it just a matter of, since we do have high school doing it, we just want to keep the whole district on the same schedule?
A lot of that dictates around transportation and things like that. So, but that also gets us to 180 days. Those half days count into that 180 total. So if we didn't require elementary kids to come to school on that day.
I would say the other way. I'd say that what I heard a lot, especially during the campaign season, was the elementary parents who the burden of having to deal with a half day. You know, you're taking half a day off of work, you're coming to do that, and, you know, wanting their kid to get as much education as possible versus when, especially in the elementary side, those half days end up being club days can be important, but not taking the half day away, just making it a full day. Is that something that's possible, or?
I would just like to offer, I think the elementary folks in the room would tell you that those half days, even though they lack that EOC you mentioned, they're working on grade completion, averaging grades, storing grades for report cards. Am I right? Yes. Okay, I see heads.
Perfect. If we got rid of some half days for the PD side, let's say we've got 6 half day or whatever the early release day, whatever the professional development day is called. I already forgot half day and early release. But if we had 6 of them and we switched that to 3 full days of each, do we end up losing out there because we're not catching that 180? Do these half days allow us to check the block that we're getting 180 days?
It does. It does.
Is that what's best for our kids? Just across the board?
I think we find tremendous success in being able to work with teachers to help them on some of those critical skills that the kids need on those days to really go back and sort of retrain, sort of reassess where we are. That's what those days are being utilized for right now. And they have, what I can tell is they appear to be very successful. Our staff seems to really appreciate the fact that they can have some additional support and training. Some examples are things like we've been doing some work with behavior, how to manage behaviors in classrooms. We've done a lot of work with assessment skills. So lots of our training and retraining happens in those early release days.
On the kind of the kid output side, obviously quantitative successes or qualitative successes. Is there any kind of quantitative, hey, doing it this model that we've been doing for quite a while now is making our kids, maximizing the ability of our kids? Is there anything that we can point to that, or is it more just a qualitative, this feels right, this is probably what we should keep doing?
I don't know that we've collected significant data in that regard. That's something we can certainly look at. We can certainly.
I don't even know if there's a way to find data to that. I just, as we proceed, I want everything we do to figure out not adult inputs, but child outputs. And I'm glad that it makes it different for the adults, and there's that qualitative side, but I want to make sure that what we're doing makes the best sense for getting that kid to read in 3rd grade or getting those algebra scores up in 7th grade. And I feel like we've been doing this model for quite a while, and the model, I think, might be beneficial within the district, but I know that a lot of parents don't love it, and I know that anything we can do to make our learning and maximize the potential of our kids is important. So I don't know if there's a data mechanism that you can put to see if it's effective or not, outside of just what we feel like, but I do think that that's something that's very important. Minutes. So you referenced the statute, Code of Laws 59, whatever it was, and I think it is 1,800 instructional minutes, and you were kind of going over the different spots with high school as 21, 25. I saw multiple bell schedules, especially for the high school. A matter of fact, one high school, I think, had like 3 different bell schedules if you just look on the websites. It's really hard to determine how we're getting to that 21, 25 minutes, especially when you take out, you have to determine the nest time, or I forget what y'all's is called, but versus homeroom, because homeroom doesn't count, but the other one does count, and you got to take lunch out. So I think if we could get more information on those numbers before we kind of really move forward with what's the best, because I don't think I'm the sharpest tool in the shed at all times, but I could not come to a good, reasonable number after a good hour of looking at it. So I would love to see us, and maybe, I think we have plenty of time, maybe the workshop would be a great time, I think we have one in January, but to really look at that and see that we're getting where we need to be. Because at the end of the day, if we want these kids to maximize their potential, we got to take our awesome teachers and we got to put them in front of the kids. And like, that time matters. I continue to hear frustrations about the high schools not being on sync. Is that something that we plan to fix
They are.
before 1 January?
Yes, I apologize. They're
You're good.
actually working on that now. We want to finalize their schedules before we move in much into the second semester, because they begin the registration process, and of course, planning with the Innovation Center. We continue to fine tune that for that reason. But I will tell you that the calendar season is upon us, and this is really when districts need to finalize calendars. So
If I'm tracking,
as soon as we can do it, the better.
if I'm tracking, most districts around us do not have a December meeting, right? And I think the November has passed. So if we do push, we are going to still be right on time with everybody around us, because I don't think anybody, as my look today, tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think of any of the Lexington or Richland counties past 1 in November.
Most of them, Lex 1, for example, and I believe Richland 1 and 2, both have a 25-26 calendar already approved. They approved it last year.
And I think they have the reapproval of that, and then they're 26, 27 for the January meeting. So the good thing is that those pre-approved ones are out there. One more thing before we really get into approving calendars, especially a second year out, is I know we have a lot of staff, not just teachers, who work in this district, but their kids are in other districts. Is it possible, maybe through HR world, that we look to see kind of maybe where those districts are, so that we can, I would hate for us to feel like, hey, we want to be the most compatible with Lexington 1, because 70 of our teachers work in Lexington 2 and their kids go to Lexington 1, but then we actually look at the data and see that the majority of our kids are actually in Richland 1 or something else when those are different. Do we have that data available, or is that something we'd have to get, or is that something that we couldn't get?
I would say we do not have hard data on that, but we have that data through conversations when Midland superintendents get together and talk about their calendars and talk about wanting our teachers who have kids in other districts to be able to be off on those times, because childcare is also always an issue, which that comes up, as you well know, on weather days as well. So we do try to take that into consideration, but as far as hard fact data, I would say no.
No, that we don't have it, or no, we can't get it?
No, that we don't have it currently.
Do you think it's something, on the HR side, is that something that you feel like we could get easily, or is it intrusive? I mean, from my world of HR, the best that you're probably going to have is zip code.
True to the integrity of the department, I would say no.
Right.
It might be a better option to,
To survey versus to pull data? Yeah, I agree.
right, because I don't know where you would pull data like that.
Right. You would,
And I don't-
outside of dependent and location, and that still doesn't guarantee anything.
Confidential.
Right.
So it's,
Aggregate, you could be okay, but still. I think that's something to consider. Was that part of our survey at all, of those 200 people surveyed?
It was not. Not specifically where their child attends school.
Gotcha. Two more things. Parent-teacher conferences. We spoke on this throughout the week, but I, as a parent, I think it would be fantastic if we expected parent-teacher conferences to be on a calendar. I know you mentioned that every school does it at a different time, different kind of juncture, but is that something that we can look forward to doing in the future, is saying, hey, as a parent, I would like to know when we're trying to figure out parent-teacher conference week is, or weekend, or Wednesday, et cetera. Is that something we can do in the future?
I would venture to offer, and again, I look to the crowd, but that the schools put out their parent-teacher conference dates to their constituents at the beginning of the year. So give me a nod if I'm correct on that. Yes, okay, thank you. So school by school, they distribute their dates.
And I think it's also important, Dr. Hafner, to add to what you're saying. We want to encourage our parents to contact the school anytime they feel like they need a conference. You know, if you just want to check in on your child, call the school and set up a conference. If you feel like your child's not getting what they need, call the school and set up a conference. So keeping that fluid, we want our schools to know that if a parent asks, you meet, and that's really what we try to work with.
And I doubt too many parents really watch this, but I love hearing that. I'm sure some parents will hear that and feel, you know, as a parent, it's always, do you want to be that squeaky wheel parent, or do you want to try to let the school do? So hearing you say that, I think will give a lot of comfort to several parents.
Mr.
All
Chair,
right, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I feel like y'all were very thorough, and you're the experts. You've talked and met with everybody you possibly can, and I think with the other things, I think we need to be careful that we're not overreaching our position as a board member, because I feel like our administrators have a lot of things under control, and that's part of their job, so I just want us to be careful with that.
Mr. Chair, 200 folks surveyed. Is there a way that we can see that survey data at all?
Sure, we can send that to you.
Perfect. The only thing I have is I am not comfortable doing 2 years' worth right now, and I will move to postpone this motion to our January regularly called meeting so that we can get that data in and we can have a better look at it. Go ahead. But there's a motion, so once the motion goes, somebody can second, and then the discussion will go again.
Is there a second on his motion? Hear none, motion fails.
Thank you.
We back to our original motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
I'm
I think
sorry,
you had
did you have a
Mr. Earl had a comment.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
And I would like to add one more thing,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. So a few of the concerns, you know, if it's an instructional day, we want instruction to happen, and I know it does, so we just want to watch that. And, you know, I think, you know, as far as schedules and times and all that is not necessarily tied to this vote tonight. You all can continue to work on timing.
Yes.
Of start times, making sure that innovation times, everything's matching with the high schools and other things that
Yes,
can be
ma'am.
done. Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of the original motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. You got anything else?
I do. We have a presentation for you tonight from our Innovation Center. So tonight I want to introduce, I believe y'all have met Stacy Baker, who is our Director of CTE for the district, who's been in that role for a few weeks, and Joni Coleman, who is, of course, our Director of the Innovation Center. And tonight they're going to share some information with you by way of an update about what's happening at L2IC, but also what's happening in the world of CTE, so that you have some great information. So,
And I will just reiterate just that, Dr. Hafner, Mr. Chair, thank you again for the opportunity to share, continue to share some of the wonderful things that are happening, not only in our district at the Innovation Center, but statewide with CTE. And with that, I'll let Ms. Baker have at it.
Okay. So, good evening, and I know this has already been a long night, so I will not drag it on just for, you know, entertainment's sake. But I do want you to just kind of remember the image that's on here for when we get to something later, because I'll reference back to this, the Future Ready, because that is what the goal is for all of the students, whether they're at the Innovation Center or at any of the other schools. And so I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. So just in general, what CTE is, the Office of Career and Technical Education with the State Department provided us some information last month, or earlier this month, kind of bleeds together, about some of the statistics that really call you to focus your attention on the benefits of career and technical education. And so the first bullet is the one that I think would be of most interest to parents and employees in the district, which is the grad rate for students who take a concentration, and we'll talk about what a concentration means in a minute, of CTE courses is 98.4%. That's for the state of South Carolina. So if you can get the students interested in something and then give them the chance to take the courses in that something that they're interested in, they stick around. And so that's a big number if you really look at it. And then if you look at the second bullet, 73.2%, and this again is for South Carolina, of the CTE concentrators graduate from high school having attained a recognized post-secondary credential, which will help them as they move into future careers. Every industry partner that we talk to does make reference to credentials and what credentials they come out with. It's a lot of our conversations. We just had a conversation yesterday with manufacturing partners around the state, and I'll talk about that again in a minute as well. But that's kind of the whole point of it, is to find the things that kids think they want to do. Number one, maybe they don't want to after all, and it's good to know that in high school. But if it is, help them go ahead and get, a leg up on the competition. So what is a concentrator versus a completer? And you have this, I know you can't see it up there on the screen, but basically what it means is, let's say I was in Mr. Henderson's barbering class. That's one of the two where you have to take 3 courses to be considered a concentrator. So you have to take barbering 1, 2, and 3 before you count as a concentrator, according to the state. But if I'm in welding, if I'm in Mr. Thompson's classes, after I take welding 1 and 2, I'm considered a concentrator. And then welding 3 and 4 make me a completer. Whereas with barbering, I'm a concentrator after the 3rd level, I'm a completer after the 4th. And some things are cut and dried like that, and they're very easy. So hopefully this will help you kind of see what can do, what courses can make a kid a completer. I will also caution you when you do look at this, that this was made, this particular chart, to help our counselors. So just because it has, if you're looking at general management, it only has a few courses listed over there, but that's because those are the courses we offer in the schools in Lexington too. There are other options that they could do online, or if they transferred in from another school district, that kind of stuff. But those are the outliers. So these are the ones that, if you're looking at general management, or I think accounting, one of the first ones, if you take accounting 1 and 2, that makes you a concentrator for accounting. And if you look over to the side, you can see that advanced personal finance and some other courses would complete it. So when the statistics on the previous slide, we're talking about the concentrator, that's what it's saying. You've got kids at least to the 2nd or 3rd level. How do things get started? It all starts with the IGP. The IGP is very important. It's the conversation that takes place. Kids are in 8th grade, getting ready to go to 9th grade, and their counselor or their career specialist at their school is starting to have a conversation with them about, what do you think you want to do? Just because they say it in 8th grade doesn't mean this is what you are forever. You could change your mind in the middle of the year, the next day, or the following year when you sit down for the same IGP meeting, because you should have one in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and again in 12th grade. And so that it might be that a kid thought, I really want to be a veterinarian, and then they got in the courses and was like, oh, I really don't think I do. Now I think I want to be a cosmetologist. We had 2 middle schools come through this week, and just to hear their conversations was very interesting, because they got to see some courses that were aligned with their interest, and then some that complemented their interest, because we had them surveyed after they went on their 8th grade trip to the fairgrounds where they do the career. It's like a showcase. Mm-hmm. And so this year we tried something different, which was to have the kids actually say the areas they think they're interested in and focus in on that area, and then 2 complementary ones. And the conversations were really good from Fulmer and from Busby. And we get back from Christmas, or not from Christmas, from Thanksgiving, we'll have the other 2 middle schools coming in. But so this is where it starts, though. It starts in that meeting, because obviously you won't always have the ability to talk to them every day. But if you do a really good job at that meeting and you ask them what do they want to do, you identify that area, you can start working towards the path that will get them where they need to go. I know this has been a conversation in the past about who belongs at the Innovation Center. And the short answer is all of the students do. Because the reality is, even if you're going to college, you're going to go to work. I mean, if you're not, you can go to as much college as you want to, you're still going to go to work. And so the goal is to bridge your academics with your career goals, whether that happens to be going straight out of high school into the workforce, whether it's going to a 2-year school, a 4-year school. Maybe you don't want to do a 2-year program, you want to do a certificate program. Those can also be very beneficial, but that's the whole purpose of the Innovation Center, is to kind of bridge everything they've been doing and getting them where they want to go. So it's every student. It's not just one type of student that should come to the Career Center. Okay, current and future programs. So we do talk a lot to industry partners. So these are currently the only 2 things that'll be a little bit different from what you would have seen this year would be the 2 red arrow things. And this was born out of a couple things. 1, Project Lead the Way is the current engineering pathway, let's say. It's the honors level pathway. But there are a lot of kids that don't necessarily want to do the honors level pathway because it's very specific. I don't know how much you've looked into the Project Lead the Way stuff, but you have an aerospace, you have civil engineering, you have digital. And so it's very prescribed into very specific areas, and it's geared mostly towards the honors level student. Core engineering is geared towards the CP level student and gives you a little more flexibility without having to pigeonhole you into a specific content. With Project Lead the Way, you're under a contract to do exactly what their curriculum says. With core engineering, you meet the state standards, but you have a little more flexibility. So to try to increase the numbers in engineering, we're going to kind of split because we have 2 engineering teachers. So one will kind of continue on with the Project Lead the Way pathway, and then the other one will pick up core engineering to try to pull more of our CP kids over into engineering. The other thing is real estate. And Dr. Hafner, you'll have to help me what month that they put out the Midlands and State workforce report about what the projected jobs are that are going to be needed in the Midlands and then across the state. And it also included things like what do you need after high school and what your average earnings are or the range of earnings. And what's really interesting is real estate appeared 3 different times on that list and had one of the highest earnings, and that's without going to college. And so we are going to implement real estate next year. I actually have a meeting right after Thanksgiving with the gentleman that just got approved to be the broker teacher. And what this will do for our students is really give them a chance. It combines a lot of things. It combines entrepreneurship, marketing, and then all of the elements of real estate. The thing that will be interesting is that they can't really sit for the real estate exam until they're 18 years old, and that's an LLR thing. That's not a preference thing. And so the gentleman that we're going to hire as our broker teacher, he has agreed that if our students take the program here, but let's say they don't turn 18 until August, they can go to his real estate school free of charge and continue like going back over the material and getting themselves prepared for that exam when they do turn 18, if they're not already 18. So we're very excited about that. The students are excited that have been talked to about it. And so we're very interested to see how that goes. Course capacity and prereqs, they're a little bit different at the Innovation Center because some things have smaller numbers. Mr. Henderson spoke about it earlier. Some of the things are capped at 20, and that's a safety thing. Something have OSHA numbers attached to it. So it really just all depends on the type of course. But the course catalog does give you a lot of information about the courses. And just some things to keep in mind when you think about how things are scheduled. The quality and the accuracy of course requests drives the schedule. So if I'm meeting with my counselor and I say I want to do these things, this is what I'm interested in, it gets entered in course request, the course request tally sheet gets run before it's time to do the schedule. It tells you how many sections you need of what thing. So the quality of that is really, really important because Ms. Coleman will use those numbers from Airport and BC to drive how many sections we need. So the better those numbers are, the better we can serve the students. This year, we're actually serving more students than requested courses, if that, or the course requests were entered. So, we want to be able to reach the kids that want to take the courses. And the course request will drive that. Semester 2, I did go through all of the semester 2 students to see if there were students who had requested things that for some reason had not gotten on their schedule, and emailed counselors if there were some changes that need to be made if it could. But some of the schedules, if a student's in a year-long class and had asked for something that they couldn't get, if they're in a year-long class, they can't take a block because the year-long is continuing. So there will be some kids that don't necessarily get it even though they asked for it because the year-long bumped it a little bit. Oh, look at me, speeding up. All right, so this just gives you a little bit of enrollment trend data. So I just went back to 22, 23. You can see for 23, 24, and then 24, 25, enrollment as it appeared overall. You could see duplications of students because they might take 2 different courses. So that's accounted for in there. The number of completers is also accounted for there. There was a jump. Obviously, I can't put 24, 25 until we see how folks do, but that number should be larger. And then the total number of students earning a state or national credential. The link on there will take you to the certification options by pathway. I would caution you if you do go look at the state departments to remember it has to have a Y beside it to count. So just because first aid's on there, it doesn't have a Y, so it doesn't count for career readiness according to the state. So you just have to be careful when you're looking at that and making your judgments. CTSOs is an area where we do need to grow, but there's some other things that really kind of took priority this year to get everything aligned. So this will be a goal that we have moving forward, is to increase the number that we have. Mr. Thompson referenced AWS, so is Welding Society, Go Skills USA, the National Technical Honor Society, DECA, and then HOSA is very active. This you won't be able to read either, but this gives you a little bit of information about the industry partners that actually come to the advisory meetings. And what I did was went through and broke them down by group, if you will. So if you look at agriculture, Clemson drives that actually, and this is the first year of the program, so that'll grow a little bit more as the program grows. Right now we're just doing ag tech for the first semester, and then I'll add animal science second semester. So as that grows, that will beef up in the agriculture spot. But you can see with automotive, and Jim Hudson's not even on there, but we just are talking to them this week, so they'll be on there next time. You can see barbering. You can go over to health science. They're very active. Lexington Medical Center, Prisma, USC School of Medicine, still hopes for CNA. There's all sorts of industry partners that drive our decisions when we have the advisory meetings and then that support our students. Referenced Zeus earlier. There's so many that it would take all night, and I know nobody wants to hear them all one by one, but these are a sampling of them. This is the meeting that we went to yesterday, which was interesting because if you look at what they said that they were finding as skills gaps, it's all the soft skill stuff that you've already heard about tonight. And then they added an extra one yesterday, so I put it in red at the bottom, that they talked about leadership development being a gap. So they said, you can get some skilled workforce, but if they come to us without the soft skills, they may not be ready to advance to the leadership positions, and they would like to fill them from within their own folks. And so that was another area that they specifically brought up, was trying to teach students to be leaders from wherever they are, even from their role as a student. And then they also talked about process improvement, specifically kind of along the tenets of Six Sigma. And this was, again, remember, manufacturing, so Six Sigma is more of a common language in that, but it's basically just process improvement to oversimplify it. But so those are two interesting things. I did see that you can get, Six Sigma does it in belts, so you can get a white belt for free. So I'm currently going through that just to kind of see the complication level of what that would be, but their materials are free, taking the test is free, so it'll definitely be something I might want to push in with the engineering students next year, since industry specifically is talking about it. Zeus, this was referenced, and those are students in the picture of the two young men that graduated last year. So we took a group to Zeus last month, the end of last month, and they actually got to lead our tour, which was really cool. Zeus has something called their Zeus Technical Academy, and so it's an unbelievable deal for students. Luke, the one young man that you see up there, his mom didn't even believe it, so she called because she thought it was a scam. And so April at Zeus said she had to talk to the parent because it wasn't a scam. And here's why she thought it was a scam. What Zeus does is they start you out at $20 an hour. It tells you what they're looking for, a GPA of 2.5 or higher. So that's your CP level kids on up. Their WIN test score of a 4 in reading and math. They can read a ruler. Interesting that Zeus had to put that out as a separate bullet, but it's out there. They can follow directions and solve problems. They have a good attitude, good verbal and nonverbal communication skills, and they're good attendance, which echoed what we were hearing again at the manufacturing meeting yesterday. So they start out at $20 an hour. It'll increase to $25.50 after a short probationary period. And what the students do is they work 20 hours a week at Zeus, and then they go to Midlands Tech where they are paid to sit in class. So they get their same hourly rate to sit there and take the classes that Midlands Tech provides and that Zeus pays for, which is where the mom thought there was scam stuff going on. And so that was the group that went, and you can see there were electricity and welding students in the group that went to Zeus. They specifically showed them how those things would play into it, but they also took them to the engineering floor, and they got to talk to some engineers. So it was a really good trip, a very recent trip, just a few weeks ago. So kind of what's in the future. So this year, a very big focus was to make sure that we've identified all the students that are actually completers and make sure that we get them recognized. So for the first time, you'll see some accounting completers this year, some general management completers this year, because those might have been students who were able to complete all of their coursework at their high schools and maybe never came through the Innovation Center. So those students will be identified and recognized. Just appropriate documentation things, making sure that everything is accounted for, agendas, minutes, budget requests, the reason for the request, all of that kind of stuff. IGPs, making sure that they're aligning if they do work-based learning, making sure that paperwork is in alignment, and then implementing student recognitions. And that's where I'll go back to the first slide. That design is a pin design that they can wear at graduation if they meet college or career readiness. So they're future ready for whatever their future is chosen to be, and that is the actual design from the pen company, and that's what it will look like, in addition to the cords that they will get for being either college or career ready, and some medallions if you're a completer. The kids really like those. And then moving into 25, 26, you can see that there. It seems far away, but it's a blink away. And then 26, 27, and beyond. And I know Dr. McDonald wanted to talk a little bit about some of the district-specific.
So one of the things that we've really tried with Ms. Baker is let's dream bigger. Let's think about what we can do, what's still out there that we aren't tapping. We've been having some conversations with some of our technical school partners about aviation. What might that look like in our innovation center? Maybe we get a pilot out of that. Maybe we get an airline mechanic out of that, which is also one of those high needs fields right now. Really just looking for ways that we can expand our CTE offerings, but also our dual enrollment offerings. We're also working on a pathway for technical theater so that students can work right here in our PAC, can do internships right here in our PAC, using all that great equipment over there, get credit for it, and then put themselves in a position to get college credit for it on top of that. So really just trying to think more and more out of the box, looking more ways we can take advantage of the resources we have to expand those offerings to our kids, and really help them to leave us ready to go. Whatever path they decide, they're going to be ready to go and excel in that. So lots of dreaming we're continuing to do in this.
Yes, there is a lot. And it's interesting when you do meet with the industry partners because they are not shy and they are very specific and they will tell you what they need. And some things are relatively easy to implement and then some things are more complicated. So nothing's off the table to be heard, but then we want to make sure we match up the biggest benefit for the students and for the district and for the money that goes into it. And so kind of for this year, in my mind, it was about focus and intentionality, like not doing something just because it might seem popular. It was popular in North Carolina or some other state. Like it's our state, it's our employers, and we want to make sure that our students are ready to enter that workforce. So focus and intentionality was very big for me. And then these are just two quotes that kind of stick with me. Change isn't always progress. This is Henry Ford, who I love so much. A fever of newness has everywhere been confused with the spirit of progress. And so that's where the focus and the intentionality has to come, because new things can be super exciting and super pretty. But is it progress? And then the second part of knowing what to leave out is just as important as knowing what to focus on is also very important. And so that's kind of what's guided me for this year so far. And I'll open it up for questions if you have them. I would direct you to the job wire if you want to know what goes on at the Innovation Center. Either come there and see it. The kids are super happy to show you anything they're doing. The other thing would be that Ms. Plowden, who's our work-based learning coordinator, she puts out the job wire, and if you go through and look at it for just the end of last month and the beginning of this month so far, I mean, it lists business after business after business after business that our students interacted with. It's very important. And you heard a lot here tonight. Joni and I were laughing that we didn't really even need to come up here and talk about it that much because so much had already been said. But if you have questions.
I just want to say fantastic job. I think we ought to give you a hand.
Oh, well, thanks.
Any questions?
Come
All right, thank you, and thank you, Dr. McDonald.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving to our last administrative division report is Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hafner. Bringing to you tonight some additional CPF projects, as referenced with Mr. Gallagher, with some additional funding that we have available to continue work, with facility improvements across the district. So what you have before you is a list of proposed projects, and if I may, let me give you a little bit of background, on these projects and why the administration feels, there is a need for them. First off, you see returfing the stadium fields at Airport and Brooklyn Casey. These fields were installed in 2013-14. Lifespan, for turf fields, around, talking to industry, workers, and also just around the area is 8 to 10 years. And so you're right there at the life of those fields right now. Our fields do show wear and tear because of the use they've received, and a lot of use. It was a great investment by the district back when that was done. Allows, teams to get out there and practice and play when you have, bad weather. You don't get a lot of rainouts, because of the turf being on those fields. But that does, show wear and tear over the course of, the 10, 11 years since they were installed. And, really with a safety, piece to that, making sure that our fields are safe for competition, for play, for practice, for our student athletes, and for our visitors, that come play on our campuses. We do feel like it's time to make that investment to replace the turf on those two fields. That work would occur over the summer, this coming summer, to be ready for play for next school year, for 25-26. You also see on there the additional work on the roofs at Wood and Northside. These roofs, Northside Middle, was installed in 1998, so you're looking at about 26 years on a roof. Typically, 20 years is when you start really having that conversation about roof replacement, so that's well beyond that. And then also at Wood, that roof was 1999. We've done a little bit of work at Wood, with roofing there, but this would take care of the rest of the roof at Wood, and this will be a complete replacement at Northside Middle to give them a brand new roof, which, as part of our plan that we've looked at and evaluated, and also just field observations, it's time for that work to be done. The HVAC replacement at at Newbridge is also on your list there. You see that. And those units are between 24 and 28 years old. Lots of issues with those, with maintenance, trying to keep those running for our students and staff. Also, they do have the old obsolete R22 refrigerant. You can't purchase that anymore. It's not available. We have to borrow it from other units and kind of make that work because you can't buy that anymore. So once again, another reason to go ahead and make that investment and replace the remainder of the rooftop units at Newbridge. So happy to answer any questions in regards to these projects.
Any questions for Mr. Warren?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I have a few. First one is the turf fields, which I completely agree that we need to stick to the schedule. But in our CPIF 2030 plan, whatever you want to call it, that we're supposed to do every April, the last time we approved it, it was set for spring of 26-27.
The pay-as-you-go 2030 plan, board approved back in 2020. That replacement was scheduled for, as part of this plan, completion in June of 26, substantial completion. And so, yeah, that was the plan back in 2020, but, after, once again, field observations and just seeing the use and the wear, on those fields, we just feel that we have the opportunity now, we have the window of time to do it, and it makes sense, as per the administration, to go ahead and get that work done.
So the one kind of issue I have there, again, I'm fine with doing the fields. It's cheaper now than we had it projected in 2020, which is a win. However, that 2030 plan authorized in 2020, we should be authorizing every year. That should be our budget, just like we have for the operations side to work off of. And when we authorize that budget, we need to have a plan to stick forward to it. So I think my concern here is the fields were for spring of 26, and now we're bringing them for here. And if there's urgency, then let's do it. If it's player safety, et cetera, then let's prove that and do it. But I also didn't see, unless I just completely missed it, I didn't see on our plan that we have approved for either the roofs or the HVAC system.
The roofs are mentioned in
Do you know what year?
the 2030 plan. They're not really, they don't provide a specific year in that plan. We also had a facility study, or LexingtonTwo had a facility study done in January of 2022. That was completed. That also noted, the roofs at Northside and at Wood as being, in that okay, good, range. That was back in 2022. That's 3 years past that. And really with a roof, when you get past 20 years, if you have an opportunity to make the investment and replace a roof, that building envelope is critical. To make sure that is maintained, make sure you're on top of that. And then what it also allows you to do is we're going to do a little bit of, Mr. McPherson has some rooftop units and things to be replaced as part of ESSER, funding at Northside. So you marry up a roof and HVAC. If you have that chance to do that work together, one curb cut, one install, you're not going back and having to cut into a brand new roof. It's a window of time and opportunity that you really want to take advantage of to make sure that the work is done and you don't see issues even after that, new roof and that new HVAC is installed.
I appreciate you kind of tying those together because that does make a lot of sense. However, that's why this doesn't need to be one-offs that we're approving. We need to be approving the CPIF budget per policy DIB in April. And so if one of these things has urgency before April, when we should follow our policy saying, hey, I think DIB, the superintendent will present the board with an annual technology CPIF budget for approval with first and second reading 30 April. My suggestion is we follow what our policy is unless there's exigency on any of these, and we approve the plan, which then dictates how we move forward. That was why we have the CPIF 8% money. That's why we issue the bonds. That's the budget runs. That plan runs the train for the bonds that we issue and the budget we work. And I just don't think it's fair, especially to the newest board members, to come in and have to approve $5.3 million that's not part of the 2030 plan that has been substantiated. So maybe I'm by myself here.
I think that Mrs. Strickland, Mr. Warren, and of course, Mr. Gallagher's gone, but this is a unique year in that the funds that we believed we were going to have for CPIF in June did not include this 5 million plus. The 5 million plus was over based on the millage tied to the debt service, not the millage tied to our general fund budget. that right? All right.
That's right, yeah. I mean, if he didn't bring those additional funds to our attention, then, this wouldn't have been a recommendation at this point in time. Those additional funds are available based on that, advice from our, financial counsel. So we have an opportunity and we have a window of time and projects that need to happen, they are, spelled out in the plan, both, 2030 plan, also in our, the plan done back in 2022. So that's why they're bringing it. I understand your point, Mr. Bray, but it's not that we just kind of said, oh, let's, bring some more. We had some more funding to be able to knock out some more critical projects for us.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Warren. I would just say, as a new board member, I and Mr. All are being asked to vote on $5.3 million, and I would have really appreciated having the information that you just gave us prior to tonight. It would have been really helpful, instead of just having these numbers on here, for you to actually give us that information ahead of time. And I haven't had the opportunity to see any kind of long-term capital improvement plan, so I don't know what we have planned in that regard. So if we could possibly receive that on some regular basis, so that I feel like I'm sort of swimming around in the dark here. And fellow board members, I mean, I have to bow to your greater wisdom about this. If you feel that this is a good idea, I'm willing to vote for this tonight, but I'm not willing to vote in future if I just don't have any information.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, one suggestion that I would like to make is that we approve the 2030 plan every year in February, kind of do like a reapproval. Just as things start to change, they're going to have to, kind of move around a little bit. We want to stick to the plan, but if we're able to do something a little bit earlier, maybe, something else has to slightly shift. So if we put it in policy to approve the 2030 plan in February, that would still give us March and April to do first and second reading of the CPIF to be approved by the April 30th date. That way, the 2030 will be fresh on our minds right before we go into the CPIF approvals.
Mr. Chairman, if I could. And just, I appreciate that wholeheartedly, and we do plan to have that as part of our January budget workshop to talk through the facilities planning so that everybody's up to date and on the
Thank you.
same page. So.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Wooden?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for the additional CPIF projects for the 2024-2025 school year.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second? Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Oh, hang on.
What's the timing for these to be done? What lead time do you need?
Well, you really want to get your roofing on the street in January, because you want to be on the front end of contractor schedules as they're lining up their work. Same thing with your HVAC, to make sure you have that equipment in time to get that work done during the summer. Of course, our summers aren't as long as they used to be, for a lot of reasons, and that's something we work through. But this needs to be, bid, the work needs to be bid, sometime later in January, to give us plenty of time to make sure everything's in and we're able to get it done and not have any kind of impact to the school schedule.
In the field as well?
Yes, sir. The plan would be in January to put it out.
One more question. The funds that we're talking about, hey, we've got these funds and that's why we need to push it. Just to clarify, Ms. Strickland, those funds, IRS-wise, can be held for up to 3 years, right? Thank you.
Just one more question. Will y'all come back to us with the actual bids that you receive, or are we going with these numbers that we know it's going to be $700,000 for each field?
This is really an estimate. I mean, the world of construction and, they're fluid numbers. Escalation is something we've had to deal with, and impact. We feel comfortable with these budgets. If there is a substantial issue with these, we would definitely bring that back to your attention.
Okay, and y'all will then, within this budget, you will go out and get bids, and you'll come back to us and tell us, or this is the final approval?
It's final.
This is historically, when this has been approved, we then go for bids and we move forward with the work. It doesn't come back a second time.
Okay, well, could I just ask, just since I'm new, I just need to know this. So what about if what ends up coming back is $812,000 for each field? Then have we already approved that?
We do build into our CPIF, budget. We have a contingency, sorry, slipped my mind. We talk about it so much, I can't believe I can slip my mind. We have a contingency built in, funds for that very reason. Now, if
Okay.
it is something that we don't feel like our contingency can handle, then yes, absolutely. But we do build that in for that very situation to make sure we're still under budget in terms of the overall CPIF allotment.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We got a motion on the floor and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries a 6-1 vote. Anything else, Mr. Warren?
Includes the CPIF update. Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I've got two more things while we're in operations. It's been a while since we've got operations report like we used to get, where it kind of listed by your different agency or divisions or whatever we call it under your area. Is that something that we can start getting again, where we get a tech update, an operations update, or a maintenance update, a student services update? That's something that for the first 3 years that we got every time, and it just kind of fell off. I had no notification of it falling off. Maybe other board members did, but any kind of backstory to that, or if we can get it going again, I'll pause there.
No backstory, whatever the board's pleasure is, happy to provide that.
It was very helpful to have it kind of broken out by school, kind of what happened that month. It was high level, so it wasn't like every detail, but it was the high level
Yes, ma'am.
details of what happened.
Definitely
It just
look at that and
keeps us up to speed, I think, better on what's going on.
Yes, ma'am.
And then as we get into the workshop time of January, between now and then, if we could get a report that shows kind of I'll call it a migration report, shows our student school choice movements from school to school, I think that'd be very effective for us. Yes, ma'am.
Clarifying question. So the school choice goes out at the first of the year, and those approvals are made in the spring of each year. So are you asking currently for last year's approvals?
Not even last year's approval, just butts and seats starting this year. So at X elementary school, how many of those kids school choice there, and from what are inflows and outflows?
Mm-hmm. And I believe Mr. Chapman has that handily available.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Or will. Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Okay. We're going to move on along to unfinished business. And under unfinished business is consideration of second and final reading of the proposed revisions to board policy JICJ, prohibition of personal electronic devices during the school day.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation as presented, the second and final reading of board policy JICJ.
I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Castles. Any discussion?
I do. Sorry, I'll be quick. Two things. First off, anybody who's been watching this knows that I'm excited about it. I'm a big proponent of not having cell phones in the schools. The data that is astounding for mental health and all that. So this is wonderful. However, I looked at as many policies that have been instated that I could find for local districts and schools. And as mentioned in the last meeting, first reading, no changes to second reading. My big concern, if you can scroll down to the discipline side of it. Keep going. Right there. First offense, second offense, third offense, fourth offense. I don't have an issue with there being 17 strikes. However, if we are never removing the device from the student's hands, we're just asking the teachers and the administrators and the students to constantly battle with it. I was very happy to see a couple of local schools and school boards put in each one of those. Basically, they have the exact same thing we have. It just says right after that, it says, I forget, I can't even read it, but take the device has to be given to the parent. And so one of my questions for y'all who have to enforce this policy that we make or that we approve, how are we tracking a warning for a student? So come January, whatever our first day back is, call it the 4th, I'm in first block. I am addicted to my phone, as many of the kids are. I put it in my backpack because I know the change is there. We're trying to be lenient. I pull it out as I'm walking out of my class thinking, hey, quick, I need to quickly see if I got a Snapchat, right? And you see me, and you say, oh, Trey, that's your warning. Gotcha. And then I go into the next class, and the same thing happens as I walk out of that one. And then the same thing happens in the third class. And in day number 1, because I am addicted, because it is addictive, the science is there, I'm now all the way to 4th offense if we're tracking it right. But do we even have a way to track that? And how are we asking our teachers to do that? I don't see how we can do that right now. I'm interested to hear the thought behind it.
So to answer your question, what we've communicated to our administrators is, this will be treated, much like you would another discipline offense where, the offenses escalate. I mean, major class disruption, the first time you may get a day of in school, and I'm not quoting this, but the second time you may get a day of out of school, the third time you may get 3 days of out of school. And those offenses are documented in Power School. So when the administrator looks at it, they can say, oh, Matt's, he had an offense last week, that was his first one, this is his second one. I would not, so the teachers are going to be, responsible, much like they would a major outburst or a major, an altercation in the hallway, anything like that occurs, to communicate to that to their administrator, so that can be documented in Power School, so it's there. So there's a record of it, because yes, you're right, we have to have a record of it, because that's going to need to be part of what's communicated to the parents, is that, yes, this is your third offense in Power School, here's the information. First one was in November, second one was in December, here's your third one. So now we are going to give you a day of in-school suspension. So they're going to track it in Power School much like they would any other disciplinary offense, so there's a record of it, documented.
As a non-administrator, if I'm a teacher and Ms. Wooten has it, and I say, oh, Ms. Wooten, you got to put up, do I go right into Power School right there and put it?
No, you submit a referral to the office, or some of our schools have different means of that. You can, there's online, there's Google Forms you can submit, but schools do have, different ways of capturing that information from the teacher, but it is sent directly to an administrator to then handle and administer the consequence, because teachers don't administer consequences. The administrators do.
So realistically, we don't have a great way of the same infraction happening 3 or 4 times throughout the day. And all of a sudden, like literally I could get 3 times each teacher thinks it's a warning. And all of a sudden, by the end of day 1, I'm having to walk down to, the assistant principal and say, hey, tomorrow you got 1 day ISS.
That same thing, could happen if a kid is having an outburst with one teacher, and then the teacher addresses it but doesn't communicate it to an administrator, and then it could happen again. It has to be documented for the school to be able to have justification to administer those consequences. So the teacher is going to need to share that, with an admin, to document it in Power School, so that there has been an offense, so they can follow the plan that's in place.
Okay.
Thank you.
Before I call for a vote, I want everybody to know that if policy JICJ is voted in, our previously named policy possession and use of electronic communication devices in school, informal for board, that it will be a deletion of Administrative Rule JICJ-R, possession, use of electronic communication devices in school. So this policy will replace that policy there. So,
Can I just, point of clarification being simply this, Chairman Key, is that the administrative rule was simply a sentence or 2, and it is now included in the model policy that was provided by the state in the main JICJ policy, just for the record.
On that point, since it's an AR and we're putting this, we still need a vote on it, don't we?
It's a point of information.
Okay.
so we have a motion and a second on there. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, moving on to new business. Consideration of first reading of proposed revisions to Board Policy BEDA, Board Meeting Notification. I Have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
What's that?
I make a motion that we approve the administration's recommendation for first reading of proposed revisions to Board Policy BEDA, Board Meeting Notification.
Second.
Second by Ms. Rooker. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, so this policy would change where we post meetings 24 hours to 3 days, and also that the supporting documents would be added. So that's what this policy revisions state, and I think that's a definite plus in the transparency column, so I just wanted to point that out.
May I make a point of clarification? And when we talk about the supporting documentation, we're talking about items in new business, policies, old business, and not content presentations by our administrative team except for financials.
Financials.
So anything basically that would result in a vote and any financial information pertaining to a meeting would be key there. I did want to point out that administrative rule BG /BGD-R does state that after first reading, the superintendent will make the policy available to the public for review. We could look at that in the future so that what we just kind of mentioned, anything for a vote would have the supporting documents, but that would have to come back at another meeting because that's not on here, but this is a huge improvement, I think. So I'm very happy to see this.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? You got something?
No, I'm good.
Oh, you're ready to vote?
I'm ready to vote.
You ready?
Ready.
All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Okay, moving on down, we are, consideration of overnight travel. Does anybody have an objection if we group all these together?
Not at all. Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve all 8 overnight travels with one approval.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
I just have a question as a new board member.
Fire away.
What requires this form? Was it something on teams that, I know all the athletic teams have budgets, I tried to look on the website, what requires this form?
If it's overnight out-of-state travel, it comes to the before the
Overnight
board.
and out of state, or overnight or out of state?
Just out-of-state, and also if it's overnight. But the funds are, but the funding,
Funds are in the,
the funding is
in the
typically their
athletic team.
people activity.
yeah, it's not a budget addition.
Correct.
Have we considered DocuSign forms or anything like that?
Electric form, yeah. I'm right there with you.
Okay.
IJOA is the.
All right, I had a motion, and did we have a second?
Yes, Ms.
Yes,
Burkett.
right, Mr. Mayor. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right. All right, we're going to move on down to announcements now. Come November 25th through 29th is our Thanksgiving holiday break. December 4th is early release day. December 7th through 8th is our Legislative Advocacy Conference and Delegate Assembly, and that's held in Charleston. I'll be attending that one. December 20th is the end of the second 9 weeks. December 20th is a half day for students. December 23rd through January 3rd is our winter break. January 6th is Teacher in Service Day. January 7th is classes resume and students return. January 8th, good old day, report cards are issued. January 14th, LexingtonTwo Teacher Job Fair at the PAC lobby from 4 to 6. January 16th is our next regular monthly meeting of the Board of Trustees, be held right here at 6 o'clock. And then January 25th is our board workshop in the boardroom of the District Education Center. We will We'll move into executive session. I believe Ms. Wooten's going to take us there.
I am. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that the Board of Trustees enter closed session for the following: consideration of personnel appointments and resignations.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Without objection, we'll move into executive session.
Got it? Yeah, we can go. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
We good?
We're good? Okay.
All right.
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees, I'm sorry, I make a motion that the meeting be reconvened in open session and the appropriate affidavit executed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll make a motion that we accept the administration's recommendations of personnel appointments and resignations as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.